Oh yeah,
And
right.
there was a comment saying, no, it wasn't in comments actually on the group, on the group page, saying that you were looking like a viable option.
It's in increments.
Is it? In little stages.
Yeah, tell us funny
Slowly.
today. Do you know Barney's football coach? Kingsley. Nigerian. Played for Nigerian national team. He does like kids training stuff. It's really good. Yeah. He was on the bike today. Hey, Kingsley, went, oh, how have you been? I was putting the gear on. So I've been to protest now. Actually here,
Yeah, protest as well.
Passion, really, it's the Royal Mail Depot, basically, yeah. Royal Mail up their own tricks again. I put it on, completely straight face. I will go for you 100%. Completely serious, and we will. I'm looking forward to this. I mean, I get votes by accident.
The more votes when I equal it makes the night so much more entertaining for all of us. The more votes everyone gets, it gets closer and closer, and it just makes it you want it to be.
Yeah.
I think so. So even fair representation.
And I think right at the show, their votes.
Did you watch the debate last night? I didn't see it all. I only saw the highlights.
I just stuck with both.
It looked painful. It looked absolutely
Honestly, the best bit is when all of us asked
It's the best.
yeah, he's best in the and he's not wrong.
Best question of the night. Best question of the night.
It was, wasn't it?
That's just all we got.
Yeah.
I think that's
I think that's what a lot of us think there, really. Well, I'd say a lot of us. One of it was to get votes in, so.
yeah, and it's a miracle that less a miracle happens, one of the market.
Yeah, sadly.
And it's a shame it's going to be heavily weighted, as it was for the last election. Had too much weight. Well, it's a silly voting system. It's a silly voting system. Should have PR. Do PR.
I mean, you're obviously not real, but you know, and you're obviously interested in politics. People like our kids, you know, there's nothing to encourage them to be interested in politics.
What a brilliant quote from Barney, who's obviously picked up as Julie's went into it, and I just thought, so he said, "Oh, definitely." So I had the pub last night. So I tell you what, it's really funny. He said, three of them that were out didn't even know what constituency was.
Oh my God!
And they're not daft. They're not daft ones. It's not like, oh, they're the silly sort. They don't interested in anything. They're like really quite onto university. It's constituencies.
Wow, that's shocking. I'm going to find out if I can speak out.
All right.
Hello again. Hello. I'll take it today. There's no way you're buying back that rolling stuff. There's no way you're buying back that rolling stuff. You see how expensive it is?
Yeah, it's not my
Tell you what, terribly good idea. This isn't a loony one, by the way. Well, that was, and it's a big turnaround. And I agree with to a certain extent. Things at the time. The amount of time all you have to do is change some bridges. You build the trains in Britain, not France. You build the trains here in Darwin. To create trains. Build trains actually a half a day because so many
I'll go on. Next conference.
It is, they go past the bridges, you don't come across. Everything would have to be high. Do you know what I mean? It's a minimum. Compared to today's, we French stuff great, isn't it? Really? Everywhere's pretty good. You know why as well? There's one line sort of that's coming through because all their lines are so good. They all think it's you'll go from Italy, Switzerland, go. Hey, here he is.
Nice to see you.
Long time no see.
I know, old friends.
What's been going on?
You know, I've been knocking on all the doors.
Yeah.
My best life.
Yeah, yes, all right.
Look, we're all here. We're all here.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
The whole family.
It's very cosy tonight.
I think you there. I think you're down the potato bit. There's you're in the middle, mate.
Isn't it?
You're in the middle. They're going to shunt everyone around. We're far too. Yeah.
And you? Well. Really?
Yeah.
This is all right. We don't need to do.
You get in there, sorry.
It's all right.
You are there.
I think they will move across soon.
This is live.
Don't mind me sitting in here, do you?
Yeah, you're all right.
I'll just stand at the back.
Once we start on the photo door, we can get everything moving on to get you in.
Okay, great.
It's just that final. We've got numbers on the back. We'll start.
Okay,
So, yeah, we should just get everything
This is the first time we've had the full set.
I didn't expect to get all of you at once, I'll be honest. It's gone
You've got to catch the ball, sir. You've got to catch the ball. Isn't it? Well, at least we're not calling a Pete's nonsense tonight. Yeah, you did so well last night. You were brilliant. I genuinely, that was like really.
I understand. Yes. Cool.
Were you there for the NHS last week?
No, I couldn't get. I saw your email, and it was blocked. Not because it was me. No. So I was one which goes to So no, I'm not sure if it's
Oh, yeah.
Of course, no.
It's a local common sense.
Makes sense, mate. It's a brilliant experience. And the Lewis in the six situation is really exciting, isn't it? So,
Bit close to it.
really?
Interesting. That's just because
So, what, your first time running here in Brighton?
No, around 2019. Probably I'm the only one around 2019.
That was the previous introduction.
Yep. Consistency. Keep going. Still here.
I'm used to improvising. It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, start.
Are you going to man with very well home stagecraft? You were standing for something. You know what you're doing.
It's all right. Feel a little bit more confidence.
Yeah, well, it's almost like a prop. It's an emotional prop as well as a tool of trade.
There's a learning behind it as well. There's this sort of
drunk, it's even better. Yeah. Oh, actually.
My taxi driver on the way here was somewhere. Had a great chat.
Yeah, let's keep going.
Are we the wrong way round?
It's easier to switch this. Just make sure everyone's got the right people.
Excellent. How are you? I'm all right, yeah. I've got your back. I'll give you a little nudge. No, we're all on the same side now.
So if you want to squash just that way, then you can the camera. Yeah.
You still see her?
No.
No.
I think it's a tough sell, mate. I'll be honest. Yeah. Then you can see Ashley speak up when I'm away. Alrighty, guys.
You have to lean that way when you're on here, you're like turning closely. Otherwise, you've only got half of it. Very upsetting.
Didn't it?
Is that vodka?
Fab, so thank you for coming. It's amazing to see both people in the audience, but also all their candidates want. I'll be honest, I didn't expect it, but I think so many different people, it's kind of easy to forget there are lots of different people with views, but having everyone in one room hopefully will give a kind of engaging idea of what everyone thinks and what everyone's views are, both from yourselves and from people over there. My name is Jerome, I'm the host this evening. We'll have performers on this kind of area. We've got Adrian coming soon to do to look out. I'll keep it simple to housekeeping. So obviously, Brexit is just that one there. So if there is a very big danger, we'll go that way. If you're leaving in not danger, you need to leave early, use the exits. So back, just to that door there to the left, you need to turn both blocks to get out, just to make sure we don't disturb things like people coming through and getting off there and make it their comfortable. There's also a toilet available in the same way, so you go out that door there and turn right, that's available, accessible. And should you need water, there's a water fountain just at that in the kitchen there. So in terms of format, it's pretty simple. We have a mix of questions that were submitted in advance via the form online for people who weren't able to make it, and obviously questions from yourself. We want to have as many questions as possible, so we're going to try and keep the answers fairly snappy. The main questions can be right in 30-60 seconds, depending on the context questions. If it's a really complicated one, I won't cut them off too early. If it's a yes or no cut one, probably more like cut off. Before that were the opening statements. And beyond that, I would just say, obviously, we've all got very strong political opinions, myself included. Totally fair enough. But if we can try and be respectful of the way we offer opinions to reflect that back there when I've taken the time here, that would be really great. Anyone got a question before we start? No, fantastic. So we're going to go straight into opening statements. The first one from Mark Mulville.
Good evening, all. Thank you for coming. I'm Mark from Reform UK. We've just had 14 years of Tories and look at the state of the country. Labour are suggesting change, but there's not much between them. As we looked at the debate last night on the TV, as it got more heated, they just sounded more the same. We need real change, not just in Brighton, but nationally. And the only way to achieve that is to vote Reform UK.
Ashley.
So I'm standing as the Liberal Democrat candidate in Brighton Pavilion. I'm standing because I believe in fairness, and I believe that our city is lacking a Liberal voice. And I believe in our policies are the most liberal and open-minded policies. And for me, it's about treating everyone fairly. That's why I am part of the Liberal Democrat Party.
Thank you. Sean Berry.
Thank you very much. I'm Sean Berry, standing for the Green Party. I live here in Brighton, and I'm really pleased and proud to be part of your wonderful community. I've attended several meetings in this room, seeing just how powerful that community can be. I'm really, really proud also of our manifesto. Our job is to bring some hope into this election. And we built this manifesto by listening to people on doors all year round, by talking to campaign groups, and really putting together something that prioritises the issues that are important to you, including defending the NHS, investing in our public services, dealing with the sewage in our water, and building the Green New Deal that people really need so that we've got a better future. We know we're going to get a Labour government, and Green MPs will be there to show them the good ideas in this manifesto and to hold them to account and be that strong, independent voice for Brighton that you've had all these years. I really hope you vote for me as your MP.
Thank you. That's it for this question.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Following on from Sean, I've got a green leaflet here. I've got about 7, which wasn't very green. I mean, probably. Yeah, you're churning them out. Lost the rainforest on that. Brighton has a unique choice. So green or another Labour MP who's told her to vote. That's you, Tom.
Is that me?
Yeah. Or you have another choice, which is to vote a monster raving loony party MP for the first time in political history. It's Parliament. And I think it's because actually Brighton Pavilion is unique. You're open-minded. You don't judge people by the way they look, obviously. I'm welcome here tonight. And you aren't the sort of people, I don't think, who just toe the party line. So, yeah, I don't take myself too seriously, but I'll take your issues seriously. And when I stand up for you in Parliament, they'll take notice. Trust me, I'm not as daft as I look.
Sarah Webster.
Hello everyone, I'm Sarah Webster, from the Conservatives. It's been a bit of a whistle stop for me. I was selected about 4 weeks ago, so it's been a really quick and fast campaign. But I am so honoured to be able to stand for Brighton Pavilion. This is because I first moved home when I left university, with my children here, met my husband in Zappa, which some of you might remember. Zappa was reunited last month. And basically, I stand for the Conservatives for a strong, secure future, to look after your money, to look after our defences, and to have a strong voice at Westminster for the people of Brighton, a place that I've moved home for a very long time. So thank you very much.
Tom Gray.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak here today. It's wonderful to be here with you. I'm passionate about the city which I love, the city in which I've lived and grown a family for the past 25 years. This election is of generational importance, both for our whole community and for our planet. The Greens want you to vote for them so they can hold Labour to account, like self-appointed school monitors. But ask yourself, when did Caroline, that extraordinarily talented politician, or indeed the Labour opposition, Lib Dems or SNP, ever stop the Tories? It didn't happen. Can our climate or our community wait? When sewage is pouring into our sea and our hospitals are crumbling, do you want words or deeds? When renters are getting ripped off and children's teeth are falling out because they can't see an NHS dentist, do we want oversight or do we want action? It is time to act, and your vote is the first act. I've been fighting for rights and welfare of the creative industries in this country for several years, and for freelancers. I've changed my industry. It's time I get to help my community. Vote Labour. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Carl Barfield.
Hello, I'm Carl Barfield of the SDP. Those who were born before the 1890s, or 1880s, will probably think you still around, and those born after the 80s will probably think, do you mean SNP? So who are the SNP? I like to think of the SNP as we are Labour, but rather Labour as they should have been. We are a left-wing economic party. So we want to sort of nationalise all the natural monopolies, such as utilities and the water and railway, protect the NHS and fully fund it, and all that good stuff. But we also reject the failed neoliberal economics and really support and champion traditional values. We've had successive Labour and Tory governments over 40 years now, which have allowed this country to atomise societies and communities that break down. And we really want to rebuild, particularly the family units, as a family is the backbone of our country. And we want to, and the family is really at the heart of all our policy decisions we can see in our manifesto.
Thank you. And finally, Representative Steve Allen.
That's for the last. I I'm here on behalf of Smarter UK, Stephen Endicott. It's the first political party that's ever using an AI tool. And I think politics is not about the Labour, it's not about the Conservative, it's not about the Green Party, it's about the people. So democracy is not when the politicians want to come and talk to you, it's about when you guys can come and talk to us. So we've built a tool that can hold conversation with 10,000 people at the same time. And if you've ever signed a petition before, you know what the value of a signature is. So the more people that come and talk to AI Steve on our website, the more data we have to go and represent in the parliament. So it's not about representing what I think is the best, it's about taking what you want. So I'm on the other side of the room because I think it's time for a change. We should stop just trusting politicians' word, and I think you should be given the choice to make policy. So go on AIC website and let's vote for change.
Thank you. So we've had the opening statements, and now going to open up to yourselves with a balance between questions that are pre-submitted and questions. So do we have any questions from the audience to start with? If not, I'll pop to a pre-written question, that's it. So we have an anonymous one, which was, how would you engage with voluntary and community groups in the city to ensure you are able to represent their communities locally and in Parliament? So how would you engage with voluntary and community groups in the city to ensure you're able to represent their communities locally and in Parliament? So the first answer is from Tom Gray.
In my job, I'm the leader of a national organisation. I'm the leader of the British Association of Songwriters, Composers and Authors. My job is about building community. It is about bringing people together. I'm very lucky. I have an extraordinary organisation with 40 Senate members, the most diverse organisation in the entire British music industry. And I'm very privileged to have been chosen to be their chair. My life has been one of building communities, networks of communities, clubs, charities in the city. The first thing I would do, becoming your MP, would be to create a very clear network, map everybody in this city, make sure that we all know each other. Everybody knows me by name, knows people who work in my office. There needs to be a continuous cycle of feedback and communication in this city so that you get the kind of representation that you need, so that you feel heard, and so that anybody, third sector, clubs, anything like that, know I'm going to be here as a voice for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah.
Hi. Okay, so basically, this is my first foray into what I call big girl pants politics. But I've been a local councillor for the last 10 years, and I've worked on many community projects. I've regenerated playgrounds, I've worked on neighbourhood plans, I've brought communities together for the Queen's birthdays. And what happens is when you bring communities together, things happen. And people enjoy being part of a team, people enjoy being part of something. And I'm always the one with a hand up, wanting to put on those events and organise that. So I reach out to all the community groups and make sure that they are being heard and represented fairly. I do a lot of work with Rocking Horse in the city, and that is the most amazing charity. And I would be very much open and willing and forward to engaging with a lot more community groups within the city going forward.
Thank you. Sean Berry.
So I was selected almost a year ago by the local Green Party members to stand in the seat, and ever since then I've been on an absolute mission. There's a literally mission written on my wall at home to meet and engage with and listen to every single group I can find working on different issues around the city. It's how I always work. I've been elected as a local councillor in the past. I worked in the London Assembly, and part of our motto in the London Assembly was that we would reach out, get the issues that matter to people, and help bring their voices into the place where decisions are made. I don't believe in just being a representative politician. I don't believe in just hearing you and going and acting on your behalf. I try and empower you to make the changes happen with me. And that's absolutely the way that I will work. Brighton is an incredibly special city because it's one of the places where this can work the best. There's so many people working on so many different issues. And from the third sector, the thing I've heard the most is that austerity needs to end. And that is something the new Labour government is going to need to hear from it.
Thank you. Swift.
Oh, caught me up. Yeah, actually, I've been involved in quite a few things. I mean, just down the road, I was an arts teaching assistant with Rocket Artists, and that was great years ago. And I think you've got to lead by example. So one thing I did was with a friend of mine called Rob, was during COVID, the hospitality industry was sort of decimated, really, and a lot of people were in trouble. A friend came to me and said, "What can we do?" And this was a nation thing. And I sort of plucked something out of nothing. I invented invisible chips with my mate Rob. And they said, "That's a ridiculous idea." I was going to buy invisible chips, but they did. And they're still on menus now. You buy a portion of invisible chips and the money goes to help people who need it. So I think, you know, you just got to conjure things out of nothing and get people along to the other thing is, I've got a Travis Perkins trade account and a Screwfix card. I'm a painter and decorator. I can start building houses and lead by example.
Carl Barfield.
Yeah, so community, it's a hard place to be. Tagline is family, community, link. And as an individual, I've worked very hard trying to help my local community in Brighton. Just down the road, I've listened to Paul Society. I've worked there since 2008, and I was just a spring chicken, trying to help people. And in my job, I'm a psychologist, university lecturer who does a lot of research in mental health individuals and public patient involvement in my experimental designs and my research is very important to me. I like to get the voices of the people I'm working with involved and not to, really distribute that sort of power and that thing. I like to democratize my work. So I'd absolutely reach out to communities, not just to get their voices taken to Parliament, but also to learn from them. I went to the nursing hustings on Monday, and I was all for the education of them, to learn the needs that people have instead of just thinking what they want.
Thank you. Mark Mulder.
Yeah, voluntary and community groups are vital to society. They are, and over the last few years, we've seen the funding shrinking from where the local authorities receive less and less each year. In order for voluntary groups to go working, I think they need to start off from an early age, and I think it's important that we bring it more into schools as well, to start getting the younger generation involved within these voluntary groups, the community activities that take place. At the end of the day, they're the future of our society. We will teach them life experiences, and they will teach them new skills outside the boxes of school. Like my past experience, I volunteered and ran a radio station. One of them was a hospital radio station, the other one was a commercial station, and one of them was built within a school. And we used to take students in from year 9 and teach them up. And the achievement that you feel when you see that they've left school, they've done their sixth form there, and they've gone on to work for some of these multi corporations like Sky and BBC, it's a real positive. We need to encourage our youth to do more as well.
Thank you. Steve Bailey.
My current job role, I work for an organisation called Community Wood Recycling. Funny enough, it's got community in its name. So they're a network of 28 enterprises across the UK, and part of the organisation is providing social value for construction companies. So essentially through that, Community Wood Recycling provides volunteering opportunities for the marginalised or disadvantaged communities. And through that job role, I've really learned the importance of how community can really transform somebody's life. And that goes to a direct action point for Smarter UK. So essentially one of the direct action points we've got is working with local businesses to help homeless people create a healthier well-being for themselves by prioritising the less advantaged people of the community, by providing volunteering opportunities. We essentially can improve the overall economy and health of Brighton and Hove.
Thank you. Finally, Ashley Griffin.
So engaging with third groups and the voluntary sector is something that's really important. So you need to meet with them, you need to understand what they want, what they require, what they need. But one thing that's often neglected is the funding behind this. So one of the big things I would do as a Liberal Democrat MP is work cross-party to make sure we actually fund these groups adequately, because there's no point meeting them saying, yep, we'll do these big grand gestures. There's lots of promises, lots of money being thrown about. It's about being realistic. You know, whoever takes government is going to have a country that's probably had the worst economic situation in nearly 100 years. So how do you improve that? How do you be honest with groups? You don't go in and promise the world. You work with them and do it strategically. So I'd work with groups and go, right, what can we do now? What's the first thing that we can do? And work backwards. So that at the end of the 4 years, we have a properly funded, fully funded private sector that are able to deliver services that aren't cut back to the core like we've seen. And that's what I'll do. I'd engage with them, go back to Parliament if I was elected as an MP and work across party. It doesn't matter, as long as somebody's interested in helping individual groups, then I'm interested in talking to you about how we do that.
Perfect, thank you. Any questions to the audience again? I know there's no hands just now, but I can continue previously. Down the front, please.
I was quite interested because you were saying about the wood recycling. We come from Hatcham, there's a site which we're having a lot of controversy over. And one of our members pointed out that wood recycling, we're looking for a new location. And it seems something like that would be ideal because it's, I don't know if you know Hatcham, we've got a protected aquifer. And at the moment, the council want to stick a mega raw melt deck on top, which is going to lose water, contaminate water, cause flooding, cause excessive sewage.
Could we do a question just to make
Yeah,
sure we can deal
I
with
was
that?
just wondering, where does this book come from? Because that would be brilliant to make use of this site and maybe teach woodwork and regenerate within our area.
So there's an aquifer, so it's like you're saying how they regenerate the aquifer site?
Well, whether it is something that this company, because it's lots of little companies, isn't it?
Yeah, so essentially my point was going to be if Steve AI or Smarter UK was elected, then we'd work closely with smaller local enterprises to make sure people do get the volunteering opportunities to sort of rebound. So a lot of people struggle with job opportunities and coming and bouncing back to the job market after, let's just say, coming out of prison, or whether it be learning difficulties, so on and so forth. So yeah, so it's just an opportunity. Volunteering we perceive as an opportunity where people can sort of upskill themselves and regain their confidence. So we recognise that, and I addressed homelessness as one of those issues because that's where it's a huge concern in Brighton and Hove.
I mean, we want to make sure that all candidates are heard from, so if it's a conversation we'll have afterwards, I appreciate we want to make sure we can, it's a valid issue, but I'm just making sure everyone can be heard from.
No, it's just making use of the land for the community.
That's totally fair enough.
Rather than a privatised
That's it. If you want to hear from all the candidates, that's totally fair enough. It's just aware of any other questions. So, do you have any further questions to the audience? Yes, you down the front here.
What we would do for people with disability in Brighton.
Did everyone hear that? So, what would you do to stop people abusing people with disabilities in Brighton? Okay, so the first one from Sean Berry, please.
So, you know, really good point. There is so much discrimination within the system at the moment against disabled people. What that does is encourage people to look down on disabled people, to maybe suspect them. All this rhetoric around benefits, the fact that the Conservative Party want to make the system of assessment for benefits even harsher than it was before. And I remember the last Labour government ran a horrible set of adverts right towards the end, where it was really not listening to people at all, where it started calling people benefit thieves and really giving examples of people pretending to be disabled. And really, what are you doing? People are going to be induced to question and abuse disabled people with this. Disability hate crime is not taken seriously enough. Police themselves are not trained well enough to take it seriously, and it does need to be taken as seriously as any other crime. But also, the government's attitude to disabled people needs to change, because that is a dog whistle that leads to more harm.
Citizen Swift.
Well, I think there shouldn't be any sort of fact. I've lost the moustache at exactly the right time because I only use it to make a point. Perhaps if we all wore one of these, we'd all treat each other with respect and equally and as citizens of the world. I think it would just change the way you look at stuff. You don't know where a good answer is going to come from. You don't know who's going to suggest it. You don't know. You know, I think everyone has a massive contribution to make. And so it's a big ask, but I think if we all put one of these on, I think for people's rights everywhere, it might just be a levelling up kind of thing. That's what I do.
Thank you. Carl Buckfield.
Yes, so I think there's two prong method to address this issue. I think one will be to properly sort of fund the police and have them able to address sort of this abuses or crimes towards disabled people, but also on a more holistic level. I think proper education, particularly around sort of schools and proper sort of funding and resources for SEND education as well would be quite vital. So attack sort of root causes around where this abuse and hate can come from, as well as having the resources and the manpower available to deal with it when it has arisen.
And Sarah Webster.
Hi, yes, basically ableism is as real an ism as anything out there. And I'm a real strong advocate for getting education from an early age into the understanding of the many disabilities that people face going forward. Some are obviously not seen disabilities. I have 3 children on the spectrum, and my eldest, who's 25, has really suffered. He's actually having to have therapy for the bullying that he received at school from his disabilities. And so I'm a real strong advocate for young age, get the education to parents, to staff, to children, but they all understand that we're all valid, we've all got a contribution to make. And I think if that's respected at a young age, that goes through to the workplace. Currently, only 3 in 10 are in work with mental health disabilities, and that's not right, because they have something to offer, and we would work to push that forward so that people with disabilities are respected and in the workplace as much as anybody else, and has the same abilities to do that as anyone else does.
Thank you. Tom Gray.
I actually struggled all the way through school. I am neurodiverse, I suppose is the best way of describing it. But luckily for me, I had this thing called music, which got me through. I often struggle to fall in line with people and to stick with the group. Ableism is present with us every single day, and it should start at school. Our young people need to feel held, and we need mental health workers in every school. We need to inform our educational staff as best we can. When it comes to the police, we need to really go back and look what the Casey report said, make sure that we get homophobia, racism, misogyny and ableism driven out of our police forces. And of course, we do need to look at the work capability assessment to make sure there's a proper support to support disabled people so they can live and work freely.
Thank you. That's all for you, Beth.
So when I was about 20 years old in uni, my best friend, he was run over by a Sainsbury's lorry, and he had to have a underleg amputation. So I continued living with this kid for the next 9 months of my life, and that's when I really saw how the disabled were discriminated. And what was really obvious was the lack of empathy from the government. There was one point in time where he had to be classified as disabled, so somebody had to show up at the front door, look at his amputated leg and go, yeah, you're disabled. So I don't think that kind of discrimination should exist. And Smarter UK doesn't just want to say we want to represent all disabilities, we really want you to feel a part of it. So a part of our AI tool is that you can have a real-time conversation with AI Steve online, and you can get call to action points that we have in place for disabled communities on the website. So we really want to take the lack of empathy disabled communities feel and put more funding, whether it be improving infrastructure, to make public transportation more accessible for disabled people, whether it be education more accessible for disabled people. We want to ensure that we incorporate all of these methods by listening and hearing to what you have to say to us.
Thank you. Ashley Goodley.
So this is something that is quite close to my heart. I have a family member who has several mental health issues, is classed as disabled, and there's lots of different caveats to this. For example, many people with disabilities want to work. One thing we want to do to help that become a possibility is make it a legal right that you can work at home, so that it makes it more accessible to people who sometimes struggle to get out of the house, whatever reason that is. So making them feel like more of a part of society. But for those who really can't work, it's about making their lives as prosperous as possible. So my sister's on PIP and she can't work. She's deemed unsafe to work. So her PIP payment is all she has. And currently that is minimal.
So we would look at increasing that to make sure that people who live with disabilities, who struggle to work, to struggle to live in normal society or need help, are given as much access and support to monies and go out and do stuff they enjoy. And as well as that, mental health is a massive part. You know, when you have a chronic illness, when you have a disability, your mental health takes a massive decline. It's something that's at the heart of the Liberal Democrat Manifesto, is to make sure that you end out of areas mental health support, because many people with disabilities will struggle to get far for that support, and make sure it's properly funded. So those are just some of the brilliant things that we would do.
Okay, so Mark Morville.
Well, I'm pretty much going to repeat what everybody else has said, but he does. Initially, it's got to be taught at school from the foundations upwards. But more importantly, we need to be leading by example. So whether it's us politicians, teachers, other civil servants, we need to increase the amount of police officers out there and make sure they're actually trained to be able to deal with disabilities as well. Mental health, how they can communicate with these people. They're just not trained. Even with us working in the NHS, our training is minimal with mental health. Most of it is done first-hand experience. We get a couple of hours in the uni classroom, and that's what we're then expected to deal with. But we need to improve mental health services as well as increase the training on it and make sure that all these people have got access to it. But it also leads back to the first question where we were talking about volunteering community groups, and it's about ensuring that we've got engagement with these groups so that all these people have somewhere to go, and more importantly, they've got somewhere where they can have their voice heard, so it comes back to us, so that we can then represent them back in Parliament. But at the end of the day, we don't know what they need to tell us so that we can make their lives easier.
Thank you. So we're going to go for another piece of question online, which is from Simon Maxwell, which is what specifically will your manifesto commitment on climate change mean for the lives and livelihoods of people of Brighton Hove in 10 years' time? And what do the people of Brighton Hove need to change to help you deliver your commitments, apart from maybe their vote? We go first to Citizen Square.
Oh no. Well, it's all about finding money, I think, and I've managed to, because it all costs. And I don't know, you probably see this at the back, that's my campaign bus. And on it says vote Looney, picture of me in the middle there, and I won't waste over £200,000 on a massive campaign bus. So it's simple when you think about it. It's, there's climate change. I mean, it's drastic. There's one thing I have thought of though, to save some money, and I've said this before, is Trident nuclear missile. So we've got, never going to use it. Just pretend we've got it. Who's going to know?
Very true.
21 billion to renew that. I mean, that's money for the NHS as well as keeping everything eco-friendly. But also, this is the good bit. Submarines, nets, clearing up plastic straight into the top as they go round the North Sea, round the British Isles, just cleaning up the sea. So, it might just work.
Thank you. Marty, UK.
So the three largest contributors to carbon emissions in the UK is home heating, car ownership, and travel. So there's essentially not enough incentives for the UK public to improve home heating, car ownership, or travel. So first of all, it's APD tax that everybody pays when we travel. We all agree that going on holiday is something that's really essential for all of us. And I think the APD tax needs to be replaced with the carbon extraction tax, where every airline company is essentially meant to disclose how they're going to extract carbon for the travel that you're doing. That's one. And the second one being EPC ratings need to have better calculations. So we all know gas boilers are going to be banned in 2025, and there's better heating systems being improved, and heating almost contributes to 65% of carbon dioxide in the UK. So that meaning if somebody's upgrading their heating system to a heat pump, the EPC also needs to reflect that. But essentially for landlords, what it means is that even though they upgrade their boiling system to a heat pump, the EPC will still push them a band down. So the EPC needs to be in par with the new technology that's in place. And lastly, electric vehicles. The car parks in Brighton need to be utilised for overnight charging points, and that incentivizes people to utilise lower tariffs for EV charging.
Thank you. That's Carl Hartfield.
Sorry.
No,
So obviously, the question had twofold. We have that climate change and also look at the rising livelihoods of the citizens of Brighton. So we want to get a good balance between protecting the environment and also protecting people and their bank accounts and their bank balances essentially. So we are committed to sort of over time phasing out, eventually phasing out coal and gas, and with actually subsidising existing commercial and residential homes with sort of solar panels, which will help the individual with their energy bills. But our main contribution to tackling climate change is, in fact, nuclear energy. We would like to build British nuclear power stations, which, let's face it, nuclear energy is the only realistic method for clean and cheap and abundant energy.
Thank you. Mark Marvell.
Well, Reform's pledge on that is to scrap net zero. The idea being it saves 30 million per annum. But just because we're saying we're going to scrap it doesn't mean that we don't care. Reform wants to build a whole batch of new micro-modular nuclear reactors across the country, built in the UK, providing 100% green electricity. But it doesn't stop there. There's things that we can do on a smaller level, locally and nationally. So the increase of solar panel use on new builds as standard, not having to push these developers to put them on there. We don't want to see price increases on houses because they've gone on there, but it's a necessity. We've got EVs coming into the market now, but trying to charge one is sometimes near on impossible. Like I've got an EV vehicle, and I nearly ran out of juice trying to get back from Gatwick Airport once because of the motorway being closed and these country roads. There's nowhere to charge it, so it's not really good. So we need to increase that infrastructure as well. But locally, there's more that we can do to tidy up our area. So we can look at the local authority, both the Greens and the Labour. One thing that's coming up time and time again as I speak to people is just the litter around Brighton as a whole. Why? That's a massive impact on our environment. So we need to start locally as well as working nationally.
Thank you. Ashley Woodley.
Sorry, I was just jotting down there. We've got lots of really good policies around this, and the biggest thing about climate change, and everyone will say this, is why should I help? What is my individual bit going to do to help you? So as a government, we need to provide incentives so that people want to revert to electric cars. So we want to make sure it's cheaper and more affordable to get an electric car or hybrid car, so the general public. We want people to engage with that and start purchasing these vehicles. We want to build the infrastructure around this, and we also want to introduce a social tariff, which will help people on the lowest incomes with solar panels installations, free installation of heat pumps, and free retrofitting of their homes so that it's more insulated. So really it's about making sure that the climate change becomes top of your priority, because the amount of time I speak to people and go, well, what is my individual footprint going to make a difference? Everyone has to play a part. It is really important, and in my lifetime it will be one of the biggest issues. So it's about us engaging, educating and getting people involved, and part of that is bringing back education as well, environmental studies at schools as well. That's another thing we want to do.
Thank you. Sarah Webster.
Okay, so we need a responsible approach to net zero. Obviously, we have a 25-year plan, and the Environment Act is one of the biggest pieces of legislation post-Brexit that we produce, and it's a plan to be admired that gives us cleaner and safer air and water. We're the world leaders in offshore wind power. We have not just one, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the biggest wind farms offshore that produces energy for us. And we need to make sure that we are being responsible with people and their budgets. We're not going to force people to replace their boilers if there's still some life in them, just to achieve an actual target to get to the goal. We'll make sure that there's a balance between what people can afford in their budgets and producing renewable energies and making sure their houses are energy efficient and environmentally friendly. So we are world leaders so far. We have outgrown all the G7 countries on our carbon budgets. Coal is down 86% since 2010.
and we are pushing forward.
Thank you. Sean Berry.
A minute to deal with the climate and nature emergency. Our policies are the only ones that really treat these emergencies with what's needed, which is an emergency response with massive, massive investment. Our manifesto, the scores are in, and our manifesto is nearly perfectly scored by Friends of the Earth and Greenpeace across all the different categories that they looked at. I'm going to give some credit to Labour because their energy policies score well. They have focused on that. That's the main thing that's in their manifesto. But they leave out so many things that really matter to people here in Brighton and would change your daily lives. So improvements to the railways, the buses, investment in homes that are warm and not damp and mouldy, clean air, nature and democracy. Labour scored low on all of those. And we need to be there as Green MPs to push them. The second part of the question was, what can we do to help you? Now, the Climate Change Act was originally a private member's bill. It came under the last Labour government, but it needed to be brought in by a backbencher. And I am ready to work with backbenchers from other policies on two bills that campaigners have ready, the Green New Deal bill and the Climate and Nature bill. And if we're going to get that through, we're going to need all of society pushing for it, like we did for the Climate Change Act. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm trying to stop you wrong.
You missed a bit. You missed a bit, Sean.
When I was a touring musician, my band did the first carbon neutral tour of North America 18 years ago. That's how long I've been thinking about this stuff. And people who are serious about the environment at this point in history need a government who are going to deal with climate catastrophe at this point in history. Our set of policies, we are going to decarbonise the national grid by 2030. In 6 years, we are going to create 650,000 new jobs, green jobs in the economy. We are going to change all the planning laws to build wind farms in 2 years instead of 10. We're going to create a national wealth fund to invest in clean steel and renewables. We're going to create a nationalised energy company to wean us off carbon at the same time as creating energy security and bringing down your bills. It is incredibly comprehensive. We are going to do it now, and I will be directly accountable to you for delivering it if you elect me. Now, Brighton has some incredible opportunities. 40% of the land owned by this city is rural. Did you know that? It's an unbelievable thing, right? The opportunities for incredible regenerative farming are huge. The ability even for public-owned wind, not community energy, public-owned wind are huge around this city. There are going to be huge opportunities for work, jobs, and prosperity. So please vote Labour.
Thank you. Do we have a question?
I was quite sort of heartened when Tom said renters are being ripped off, because that might be a recognition that the market doesn't work and that rents are far too high. My concern is that issues like rent controls were taken away by Tory government. We've had Labour and Tory governments since, and no one's done anything about it. As you can probably see, I'm from the Living Rent campaign. So rents in Brighton and Hove are totally unaffordable. People are being driven out of the city. The privatisation of council housing through the right to buy has cost the public over 30 billion. It's probably the biggest privatisation of all in a public asset. Everybody says how hard up we are, but then nobody gets rid of the right to buy, and it goes on. So, in fact, in this city, in Brighton and Hove, 86, it's the highest in the country, I think, 86% of ex-council homes that were once rented at social rents are now let privately at rents that are about 3 times as much. So what I'm looking for from, there will be a Labour government, from a Labour government, and for other oppositions, is to tell me whether you will bring in rent controls to bring rents down, not just to cap them, to bring them down, and whether you will abolish the right to buy and immediately on day one, not review the discount, suspend, end the discount, because that is a loss of a massive public asset. So I'm really talking, to Tom and, and anyone, and will those people that will be, if elected in opposition, will you vote and sign early day motions and raise your voice for these two issues, ending the right to buy and rent control?
Ending the right to buy and rent control, so we're going to go to Ashley Vicky first.
So simply put, yes, we'd ban the right to buy. We'd also introduce a landlord licence, which will put more nationally, not just locally, which will put landlords under the microscope. I'm sure there's loads of really good landlords, but there are also loads of rogue ones who just want lots of money and to put you in really horrible accommodation. And as well as this, we'd introduce a tax for second homes as well. This is because this also drives up the rental market, because people buy homes, don't rent them out, there's a shortage of housing, and then there's a monopoly on what you can rent it out for. So that's what we would do, as well as introducing a rent cap as well.
Thank you. That's Mark, you then.
So we've had about 4,600 conversations on the AICD website today. The first most asked question was Gaza, second most asked question was the NHS, and third most was the cost of living crisis. Someone who's 21 years old, I know how difficult it is renting from someone, and I know how ridiculous it is to rent a 5-bedroom or basically just a cardboard box for £800 a month. It's extortionate. So we aim to resolve the cost of living crisis by... I completely lost my train of thought. I was just empathizing with myself there. Damn it. So yeah, we aim to represent the cost of living crisis, and we hope to take your opinion seriously. And I honestly don't have an answer for it.
Can't rent.
Yeah, can't rent. Renting is just not an option. So I know working in construction and construction companies are going into administration because what those construction companies are dissolving because the housing market is just too saturated. So, yeah.
Thank you. Sean Berry.
To your questions directly, yes, rent controls, and yes to ending right to buy. And then the third thing that's really necessary, which is a fund to buy homes back, buy homes from landlords. If they're not happy with rent controls and regulations per sector, they want to sell up, we'll be there to buy those homes and turn them back into council homes. We absolutely need net gain in social housing. And I will do better than sign every day motions on rent controls. I've got a record of convincing powerful Labour politicians to become quite vocal advocates for rent controls. In my previous job in the London Assembly, Sadiq Khan came in 2016, welcome relief from Boris Johnson, but he wasn't in favour of rent controls. And it was the Greens on the London Assembly, alongside rent campaigners, housing campaigners across the city, who worked really, really hard to push him. And I said to him one day, he hadn't done it for about 2 years in, and I said, I'm never going to stop going on about this. And about 6 months later, he was like, yeah, I'm in favour of rent controls. And now he's a very strong advocate within Labour for rent controls. We've got allies within Labour. We can convert Keir Starmer to put that in, even though it's not in the manifesto that Tom is here to do.
So it's become clear that we can't trust the private sector to build enough houses we need, and this has led to a huge supply and demand imbalance in housing that the people we need to house. So I do not really think something like rent controls is particularly necessary. I think you just need to build the houses so landlords can't push the prices up with the overwhelming demand. So the first thing we'll do is we will build more social housing, have the state involved with 1,000 a year, bringing up the total with what's already being built recently to about 300,000 a year. And we'd also end the moratorium on the buy-to-let properties, and we will put a temporary end to right to buy, where when the social housing stock is, we will reintroduce right to buy on the proviso that the houses units sold are replaced in house one.
Thank you. Mark Mulder.
Yeah, maybe similar to yourself. Like initially, reform will prioritise house building on brownfield sites by giving tax incentives now on there, so that we can get more social housing built. The more social housing we've got, the less demand there is for private landlords, because they have proven over the years they're useless, they don't keep up the maintenance, they charge extortionate rents. But I spoke with somebody yesterday, and they were saying that 60% of their wages goes on their rent. That's not acceptable. It's not. How can you survive a month with 40% after you've got your yard bills to pay? So social housing is a key priority for reform. But more importantly, it's for those in the area. So any social housing that's built within Sussex goes to Sussex people. You don't end up with local authorities in London trying to snap up these houses and sending people down, which is happening in other areas of the country. It's got to be kept for those in this area and those that are local to Brighton. As for right to buy, reform has no stipulation on that, but my personal view on that is the same as Carl's. It needs to be stopped temporarily. We need to get the social housing stock up there. But when it is then reintroduced, it needs to be on a one-to-one basis, so that there is one built for everyone that is sold. Because this way we can get people owning their own properties and give them financial security.
Thank you. Tom Gray.
Yeah, over a third of people in the city are private renters, and most of them are concentrated in Pavilion. For a long time, private renters have been the victims of unscrupulous landlords. And thank you for your work trying to defend renters. We will protect renters, and we will ban no-fault evictions. We'll enable renters to challenge unreasonable rent increases. We'll hold landlords to high standards, and we'll bring in AWAB's law into the private sector, so what damp and mould will be stamped out. Our brilliant Labour Council have introduced a landlord licensing scheme, which the Greens dithered over for many years and didn't deliver. It's already proving useful. You know that our position is already to review the discount, and I'm sorry, but that's the answer for you. I'd love to see us really looking at right to buy when it can apply. I know that we're going to certainly look at it on new builds. The truth is that supply is part of the solution. We are going to build 1.5 million new homes. We are going to regulate Airbnbs, and we are going to regulate second homes. They're going to be a powerful way of resupplying longer-term accommodation. Plus, we're going to deal head-on with the cost of living crisis by making the minimum wage a real living wage for the first time, ending fire and rehire, making sure people get contracts with the minimum numbers of hours set out. People are going to have more secure, stable lives under a Labour government.
Thank you. Citizen Swift.
Yeah, well, we need to build more houses, don't we? But I think we can use, there's loads of buildings we've already got, offices, empty. And like I've said, I think you lead by example. So I think it used to be, what's the price for a pint of milk? If you knew the politician was out of touch or not. What's the price of a 2x4, 1x2 bit of plasterboard? I don't know who knows that answer. I do. 12.77, Travis Perkins. With my trade deal, I can get it for a tenner. And Sean, there is the hemp board, obviously, option. That's 30 quid. So you can pay for eco-friendly. And I'll build it. I'll get in there. At least I'll kick it off and get it started. You know, I'm not a bit of a dodgy plasterer, I have to admit. But, you know, I think you have to go, well, are there places we can use without, because otherwise costs will spiral out of control and people go, where's this money going? Well, I'll know, because I know how much it all costs and I can get it kicked off on a cat rent. Also, sorry, if I've got time, 10 seconds, come on. Fair B&B. So keep the second homes, but tax every bed in every Airbnb, and then money from second homes goes to building first homes. I'd hang on.
Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, rates are high. Both of my sons rent, and they pay extortionate amounts of money on their rent. We did have the rent reform bill that we were trying to get through, and we would ban no-fault evictions. But basically, it's true. We need to build more houses. The more stock you have, the rents will come down. And we do pledge to bring forward £1.6 million of new appropriate 6 million houses of appropriate housing in the right places, and making sure that we are communicating with local authorities and the community as to where to put this housing. Because you can't just put a big number on it and go, we need more houses, we're going to give you this. But we have to make sure we're engaging with communities and that it's in appropriate places where people actually want to live. Because people in social housing need to have access to public transport, to jobs. So we can't just go building over the green belt, which is what Labour would do with new towns, if there's no access to public services or to get into their jobs that they probably need to get to.
Thank you. So we're going to go to another question that's submitted online, which is following from Anonymous, which is, what is your position regarding Gaza? And do you agree with all three aspects of, quote, immediate permanent ceasefire? We're going to go to Steve Bayard, Smart UK first.
Absolutely, yes. No to war, no to any kind of war. Like mentioned earlier, we had 4,600 conversations. The most asked question was, what was our take on Gaza? So not only if Smart UK does get elected, we will say no to any kind of war.
Thank you. Tom Gray.
I am the son of a refugee whose parents were displaced by persecution and war. And recent events have been beyond harrowing and difficult for anyone to witness. I've long backed an immediate ceasefire. The ICC guidelines should be followed. There should be no offensive. British arms should not be used in any such offensive. It's imperative that the UN Security Council endorsed ceasefire resolution is agreed and implemented at speed. And we need a peace process. Labour will fully recognise we will have a peace process, a two-state solution. We need lasting, sustainable peace in the region. We can't see this stuff anymore. It cannot go on.
Thank you. Citizen Swift.
Well, as I said at Hustings last week, it's not something I can make light of. What I said was the persecuted have no flag. So I think on every side of war, there's casualties. I would say, though, I'm not trying to make light of it, but there's a lot of people in high places that take themselves far too seriously. If you take that as a judge of character, and you won't get any debate or moving forward when people are just resolute and they won't relax. But you need to sort of let your guard down a little bit to come to a solution, I think, with anything, or a compromise. And having said that, again, back to Trident, I was going to replace Trident with Trifle and send it out to different countries so that everyone's kind of chilled out and sort of just happy with a good old British Trifle. And to see that we don't want to blow the world up, we want to cheer the world up. I think if everyone maybe kind of took that view, we might get somewhere.
Thank you. Sarah Webster.
Yes, obviously, we'd like to see an end to the violence and the loss of civilian life here. And what we have to remember in all of this is there are still 100 souls out there that are being kept captive against their will. And there are families, mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, husbands, wives who are waiting for the return of those hostages. And whilst we do really want the ceasefire and we do want loss of civilian life, we also have to remember that we want those hostages back as well.
Yes, to all the parts of the question. October the 7th was horrific, but the response has been disproportionate from the start. The Greens were calling for an immediate, permanent, bilateral ceasefire, the release of the hostages, from within a day or so of seeing what Israel's response was. It is horrific what's gone on since then. There's something like 20,000 missing children, missing as in presumed dead under rubble in a city, in an area that's been completely destroyed. That's about as many children as there are in the city. It's absolutely horrific. It has to end. And this city needs to stop having arms and parts for bombers and fighter planes made in this city that are contributing to that effort. I'm really proud of the way that campaigners went about challenging the Ellery Harris factory. I'm really proud of the fact that they won that in the planning decision on their extension. That factory is still there, it's still doing this. I know that people in the city will feel the pain of that every single day. If I'm an MP, I'll keep working until that factory is gone. And then at a national level, I'll keep making sure that the promises that Labour have made on things like the recognition of Palestine are kept, and that we stop as a nation arming Israel while it's doing this, because it is too much for all of us and it needs to stop.
Yeah, no war is ever good, and it needs to come to a stop. So a ceasefire, an immediate ceasefire, has got to be called. But it's like Sarah said, there are hostages out there, and we do need to get them back. But ultimately, someone's got to give to get any talks or anything given. So that ceasefire has to stop, be put into place. Talks need to resume, and we need to get them hostages back, and we need to work cross-party to have these discussions to ensure that everything that the ICC says is put into place and delivered as well.
Okay. Well, I simply can't add any more to what's already been said at this table. So we fully support a release of hostages followed by a ceasefire and a peaceful two-state solution.
Thank you. Ashley Ridley.
So on this, the Liberal Democrats, like the Greens, have been very clear from the beginning. An immediate ceasefire, a release of the hostages, recognising the state of Palestine and supporting a two-state solution. But it is quite amazing. There seems to be a bit of a fear of mentioning the elephant in the room. And I think it's put very well in our manifesto. And this is how it's worded. There is no military solution to getting rid of Hamas in Gaza. And that is the biggest thing. You need to get both sides to the table to have a lasting ceasefire. And for that to work, you need to be able to speak to both sides. Both sides have acted horrifically in this conflict, and we'd ban exports of weapons to Israel as well.
Do we have the audience? Hey, down the back.
Yeah, well, lots of questions, but one that's on my mind for some reason is about I worked with a asylum seeker as a nurse. He wasn't allowed to work, so he was on the dole and work. So would you allow asylum seekers and other refugees to work while they're waiting for that process?
Sarah
Obviously, it's a due process for people that come into this country, and we have to follow that process. I think the management of that is quite difficult because if, for instance, someone was to get a job in a workplace and then their application was turned down and they were refused, then you're not only taking them out of that workplace and affecting that business, but also affecting their lives. So I wouldn't agree with that.
Mark Mulder.
Yeah, I'm the same as Sarah on that one. I wouldn't agree with that. Again, there is a process in place, and until that's resolved, then they could end up being taken at that job.
Sean Barrett.
Yes, for a long time we've wanted to end immigration detention. We think that's an inhumane way to treat people. People seeking asylum should be living in the community and should be allowed to be full parts of that community. The fact that they're doing that ought to form part of the consideration of whether they should be able to stay. I think we do need to completely overturn. And if you look out, I've looked on lots of doors, I've had very, very few people say to me, my major concern is the fact that there are people seeking asylum who've been fleeing war and disaster and persecution and political persecution as well. I've never had someone say that. I've had people say, I want the boats to stop because I can't bear the thought of the people being exploited. But the way to do that is to provide people with legal and safe routes. So we are all for a humane immigration policy, a humane asylum policy, one that treats everybody with dignity. If you look at the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, it's everyone's human right to be treated in that way. It's the way you want to be treated. If something went horribly wrong in this country and you had to flee. So absolutely, it's a moral thing for us, and our policy is very, very clear.
Thank you. Right.
Yeah, you're not going to be surprised to hear the son of a refugee saying that refugees should be treated humanely. I'm really proud of Bella Sankey's work, actually, to take on the use of hotels in the city for unaccompanied children. I think that was one of the most disgraceful things we've seen in a long time. And the stories of those kids going missing was pretty unspeakable. I've worked for quite a few years for an organisation called the Helen Bamber Foundation. I don't know if you know, are familiar with them. They're also part of Refugee Aid. We primarily work with the victims of trafficking and torture. Incredible stories that you hear, really, really harrowing, really hard. We need to be a safe place for refugees in Brighton. We need to reinvent the wheel, safely house those legitimately escaping persecution and war. The tiny amount of money that they're given every day to live on is really poor. I am always, whatever, I don't actually know what our national policy is, but you're not going to find me not advocating for these people to be able to work and look after themselves. Thank you.
Just to be clear, Peter Carr was on the World at One this morning and said refugees should not be allowed to work until their claims have been processed.
Oh yeah, well, once their claims have been processed, yeah, I appreciate that. No, that wasn't the question. Sorry, I mean, look, it's really a tough call that, but obviously, if that is our position, that's our position. Personally, I would love to see refugees treated well.
So I'm quite surprised that Tom doesn't know the position, but the position is no, Labour will not allow people who are currently through the process of gaining asylum to work. The Liberal Democrats do support this, have done for a long time. I just can't quite understand why anyone wouldn't think that that's a good thing. They contribute to our society with taxes. They get a sense of well-being. Yes, it's all well and good saying wait until due process, like the Conservatives would love, but that's 4 years, or possibly a flight to Rwanda. Now, for me, immigration and asylum should be compassion. While they come to this country, they deserve the right to be treated like everyone else. And that includes the right to work, have income, pay taxes, and have a normal life. Because a lot of them have fled war, climate crisis, economic hardship, persecution, and then to get to a country and be stuck on a barge and be given a very little amount of money with awful food that you probably even serve prisoners is quite frankly appalling. So that's Liberal Democrats' policy.
So to answer the question in short, no, we're not giving the right to work. We'll boost and facilitate the safe legal routes for them to be properly vetted in a timely manner. But during that period where they are vetted,
Thank you. Smarty UK.
Completely understand human experience, and yes, asylum seekers should be given a safe space in the UK. However, on the other hand, it does detract from foreign direct investments and legal immigration into the country. So they will have to comply and pass certain regulations before they can sustain their jobs. But initially, they should be offered job placements to sustain themselves in the UK. But in no way should they be treated in an inhumane way. So essentially, the current ruling government has dropped the national insurance to 8%, and a lot of tax-paying money does go into asylum seeking. So if we want to consider that aspect, then that percent has to go back to 12% for us to sustain money in healthcare, funding, and asylum seeking. So it's a double-edged sword, but it's got to be a fair play. So we've got to consider humane treatment and FDI and how we present UK as a growing economy for anybody that wants to move here legally as well.
Thank you. And citizens quick.
Easy answer, yes I would. Because I think if people come here and they want to contribute, and they can contribute, then why not? They feel more part of the community. I think that off you, actually, apologies. And everyone here is missing a trick. Who isn't contributing? Boris, Rees-Mogg, Liz Truss. I don't know. There's a list of hundreds of people with flights ready to go. I wouldn't go to Rwanda. I'd go further, Alaska. I think actually, if somebody hasn't contributed or has managed to tank the nation's economy, best off out. And yes, welcome asylum seekers with open arms.
So we've got about 20 minutes to go. So we've got time for 1 or 2 questions and we've got statements. Yes.
So my question is about independence of thought and action. So I guess the independents may find it easier to answer than the others. If you're a member of an established party, how nearly do your current views mirror those of the current leader of your party. And if you found yourself in conflict, if you found yourself in conflict for any reason, how confident can we be that you would speak your own truth and not be cowed by power?
Okay, so Cole Hopfield first.
Well, I think it'd be hard pressed to find anyone in Brighton who's more independent than me. I'd be quite humbled out there in debate. And my views align with the SDP quite a lot, purely because I found myself politically homeless. And one day, while googling around, I found this being sort of, oh yeah, the British brilliant, party of common sense, great, let's go forward with that. When it comes to would I debate with my party leader, William Houston, yes, I would, and I have. I have no problem with that. He's a very genial man. And one thing we debated about, one thing I have a personal belief in, which the SEB does not reflect, is one thing I talked to him about once was the introducing some form of feasible negative income tax. But yeah, that's.
Thank you. Tom Gray.
It's really, the way that we manage to, it's why it's so important to vote Labour in this election, is because we're going to deliver this stuff. What you vote for is going to get done, right? That's what you're voting for. You can see the list. That's why it's very important that you choose MPs who are going to give you what can be done, not vote for some kind of wishful thinking or some version of reality that is never going to happen. The Tories have ruined this country. They have wrecked the social contract. We need serious people who are going to seriously take this on and change it. My record has been of taking on vested interests, challenging people. This is what I've done with my life. I am a kind of person who is, whenever I've needed to take on authority, I have taken it on. But right now, in this moment, when our country is falling apart at the seams, when you need the fire brigade because the house is on fire, just let us in. We're going to act like a team because that's how we're going to deal with it.
Thank you. Mark Mulvihill.
I think no potential politician can sit there and say, I'm 100% behind everything with the party, with the lie. But one of the things that's different with Reform compared to any of the other parties, especially Labour and Conservatives, what have you, they're towed by the party whip. We're not. We don't have a manifesto, we have a contract with you. So if we want to stand up for something, we can. And that's one of the biggest differences with Reform against some of the other parties. So therefore, by voting Reform, if your views, if I'm your MP, are different to that, to what Nigel Farage is saying, or any of the others, I will happily stand there and hopefully make him sway and get what result that you want from your MP in Parliament.
And it's not you, but
And I understand there's a lot of mistrust in politics and the connotation of politicians, and that's exactly why I think Smarter UK is really good, because it's reinvented, it's fresh, it's new. So essentially, we all need a new tool to express our views and express our policies, and no single person is ever qualified to make decisions on healthcare, immigration, commerce, and we need to hear what the people have to say. So Smarter UK, STOI, can hold up to 10,000 conversations each day, and we rely not just on opinions and thoughts, we rely on facts to go and represent what we think is best. We represent what people have said, we data fish and we validate it, and it's analysed 2 steps of the way, so it does not slip democracy. So I just think we need a fresh perspective and fresh take on politics.
Thank you.
Okay, right, quick little story. I was sat in my first job at uni, the Pizza Express, there are all the restaurants out there, for an attitude problem, because I argued with my boss, because he was very patronising of this young girl and thought that I didn't know how to add up. I will always stand up for the people I represent and for myself. And I think in a party, you need to have factions of all different personalities. No one party all sings from the same hymn sheet, otherwise we'd all be the same. Politics in its nature is divisive, but we also need to be collaborative.
And there's been lost a lot in the last few years, and particularly in this campaign. There are things that we've worked together, as shown earlier today, a collaboration of parties coming together on a common cause, and that is what I would do with the Conservative Party. I would stand up for what my constituents believe in, what I believe in, but I am a Conservative, I do believe in independence, not dependence, and I do follow Conservative lines.
Thank you. Sean Berry.
I mean, it is a fact that the Conservative, Liberal Democrat and Labour parties all operate a party whip system where you are obliged to follow, particularly when voting, the party line. The Green Party does not operate a whip system. So if I was elected as your MP for this area, no matter what my party thought about a particular issue, I would be able to vote in the interests of Brighton Pavilion, because that's who I'm representing. And occasionally there are, like you say, issues of personal conscience, where also I would be free to do that. Now, also reform there's no way that Mark had any say in Reform's manifesto, because Reform is not a democratic internal democracy. It's a company owned by Nigel Farage and whoever gives him all his money. And I don't know what kind of whipping system they might have, but they certainly do not have what the Green Party has, which is a system where members get to decide our policy. So no, I don't. We disagree with many of our policies. It's been worked out in a really democratic way by Green Party members. And Carla and Adrian, who are our co-leaders at the moment, they wouldn't be able to tell me what to do, but I'm very much looking forward to them being elected to Parliament and being colleagues in a team with them. Greens are great at working together to form a consensus, and we don't generally work in that authoritarian way that all the other parties do by operating the whip.
Citizens' Group.
Of course not. I got an email, I sent an email to Howling Lord Hope, our party leader, and he said, I've got a couple of hustings coming up. He said, oh, excellent, great. He said, good luck, Squiffy. Just don't upset anyone. So that was my party line I had to follow. And basically, I think you've got to be open-minded. I just said before, ideas could come from anywhere. I think if I went, no, I don't really agree with that. The whole point of the Looney Party is we're, think a bit different. Might come at it from a different angle. Or, it's not all daft. There's logic in loonyism somewhere. But I'll stand up for what you want in Parliament, because I don't care. I'm a loony.
So just quickly, I want to praise Tom for becoming a brilliant politician, avoiding the answer to that question. That's very good. And I would also like to thank Sian for bringing up the whip, which, yes, the Liberal Democrats do use the whip, but there's different levels. And we very rarely use a 3-line whip, which is where you're told what you have to do. So yes, I'll be able to vote on my beliefs, your beliefs. As long as it's Liberal, I will support it. If it's the opposite of that, it's kind of in the name. I'm not going to support it. And if our party ever took a different direction, I wouldn't be in it. I support Liberal values. I am a Liberal at heart. That's why I'm a Liberal Democrat. So I will stand up for those beliefs.
Okay, so we've got 10 minutes left. We're going to move to the closing statements now from the candidates.
Just one question about the city of Brighton. Just one very quick.
Because you've only got 10 minutes, we have to be out by yet. And
Just one about the water.
If it can be yes or no, then yes.
It can be a yes or no. Okay, very, very quickly, Patrick Aquifer, if it's built over, could cause a problem to our drinking water supply. Will you support Patrick against Royal Mail, please, to help us protect the city's water before everybody gets poisoned? I'm having to go from one to the other.
Yes or no? Sarah,
yes.
Sean Berry. Oh, welcome.
Yes. Yeah. There's no evidence it'll poison the water supply.
There's plenty, Tom. You're drinking it now.
Yeah, I was there today.
Okay, now we're going to go to closing statements. It's really going to be about like 8. The first one statement is going to be consistent square.
Oh, what?
And it's 60 seconds, so please.
60 seconds?
Yeah.
I'll count down. I think it's back to the opening statement. I think if you can tactically vote, maybe at this election you go, oh, it's the Green. No, there's a lot of options. It's not just Green or Labour or Tories. I think you do have a chance, though, to, whether I get elected or not, to maybe have the first monster raving loony party candidate in history to poll more votes than one of the other major parties. We'll see on the night. But then you won't be voting tactically, you'll be voting, I think, and if we had PR, I think we might go second on a lot of people's lists, actually. I think you'd be voting with your heart. But I'll tell you, if I do win, I'll pass out, recover. Then I'll make one pledge as well. The 500 quid, if I get it back, I'll donate that to homeless charity in Brighton. I think I can definitely say that. That's my first pledge.
Smarter UK is fundamentally trying to fix what's broken in politics, which is communication and the power distance between the constituents and the people who represent it. So I invite everybody in this room to look at Smarter UK with a fresh perspective and try AI Steve, where we can data fish and represent your values for what it is and as they are. So it's not necessarily me working against other politicians, I'm trying to work for you. So Smarter UK aims to represent the people and what Brighton and Hove consists of. So yeah, talk to Steve AI. It's available 365 days a year, 24/7, and you get real-time answers and you can have a conversation about anything politics. So if there's one thing we can take from today, I encourage you all to try the new piece of tech. And it's just the genie's out the box. So yeah, let's give it a go.
Wow. I hope you've had as much fun as I have playing visual bingo. All the fucking, talking points and, stuff like that. But, I think it's Einstein who's credited to saying that insanity's definition is doing something over and over again and expecting a different result. We've had too long, we had Labour and Tories, just the indifference they have, their neoliberal outlook on life. And we need something new, something with actual long-term solutions that can tackle the problems that this nation has, and not just parties that are chasing the next headline. Their time event horizon is just whatever's around the corner. We need people with actual vision.
Perfect. Tom Gray.
Don't believe this nonsense. Over the past 100 years, Labour have only been in for 30 of them. 70 years of the Tories we've enjoyed. That's why this country feels the way it does. Every time Labour's been in, things have got better. Less people have been in poverty. Our NHS has improved. Our education has improved. We need to get to work. The Greens are going to tell you they'll hold other people to account for the work they will not be doing. We will be directly accountable to you for delivering our commitments, responding to the extraordinary challenges we are facing, meeting net zero, and delivering the change we all need. The only way that can be done, the only way you can get that accountability is delivering a Labour MP in a Labour government. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting us down here tonight. It's been a pleasant evening. But it's going to be the same as ever. We hear the Tories say one thing, we hear Labour say the other thing. They start sounding the same, like I said when we first got here. Whilst none of us will wholly agree with any particular party, the country does need change and it needs reform. And if we're going to get a better NHS, if we're going to get lower taxes, we don't want the green belt built on. If you want children to have a proper education, we need reform. Vote for me on the 4th of July, and I will be accountable to you, and I will promise to deliver everything I have said about all the Hustings and my key pledges that I have made when I've been out on the streets. Homelessness needs to be reduced in Brighton. Knife crime needs to be reduced, and the NHS needs sorted, whether it's on a local level or national level. I will work locally to ensure that this corridor's waiting stops and that people are seen within a reasonable time. And I will be accountable for that by you.
So I've always been told I'm not very good at selling myself, which I think is true. I'm very brief with myself. But one thing that I am very good at is selling this city. And it's a brilliant city that I've grown up in that's full of vibrant people with different beliefs, different values, and all of it is connected by the understanding that we just don't care. You can do what you like in Brighton, but people come down here for a good time to express themselves and just be free. And I think that is literally liberalism in its sense, but we don't have a voice. You'll hear Labour say that it's between them and the Greens, and that if you have to vote for one of them to keep the Tories out, well, you will be voting for one of them. If they get in, they're just red with blue on the inside. Or you have a real alternative with the Liberal Democrats. Think outside the box and try and remember there's more than two voices in this election.
Hi, as I said, I've only had 4 weeks to mount this campaign, but what I do believe in is that Conservatives can deliver and are delivering a secure, bold future. We are bringing inflation down. The economy is turning a corner. We are just about coming out of what has been a very, very difficult few years, which any party on this bench would have struggled to deal with. Stick with us, and the plan is working. And we do have a plan. We are bringing inflation down. Things are working. We do have a plan. Labour don't have a plan, and they will tax you, and they will tax you on your choices, and they will tax education, which I think is fundamentally wrong. You should be allowed to spend your money on what you choose to spend your money on, and not be taxed.
And finally, Sean Berry.
Thank you, Chair. That's been tremendously efficient, that. So the Tories are toast. It's official. It's definitely going to happen that we are going to have a change of government. But a Labour government with a gigantic majority and supposedly no one holding them to account is not better. It's not even healthy for democracy. Greens are going to be needed in the next Parliament, not just to hold Labour to account, but to bring them good ideas. We need to be there, keeping an eye on what happens when they start being in charge of the NHS, because they are talking about more privatisation. We need to be there to expose that and show the problems. But we also need to bring them good ideas, things like bringing the water companies back into public hands, the big Green New Deal investment. All of those things are real hope and real change. We're needed to bring that into Parliament. Losing the Green voice that Brighton has had would stop it having that strong and independent voice. It would be left with 3 Labour MPs. It's healthier for our city, it's healthier for our country and our government, and it's healthier for our democracy if we keep our strong Green and independent voice here.
Trying to get everyone's views and make it work. If I can ask 2 things when we leave, if we can make it keep quiet as we're leaving, because it's a residential area, and if anyone is able to, get the chairs away to be packed as quick as possible, that'd be really great. So thank you for coming. Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Wait to leave. Oh no. You think you wouldn't like us? I felt like
Hello, mate.
Ian quite literally running away. Thank you for all your support.
Got you a present.
We really, really do support it. If there's anything else you think you'd like to do, or anything would be useful for you guys, you know.
The main thing is once this election goes on, no matter what, I think the main thing is trying to get people to agree and push
It affects the whole city. No Tom literally said it doesn't. But if it poisons it, it's not like it's dirty.
and it's
My voice wasn't good today, so I